Welcome to Door to Door Insider, where we take a deep dive into the mindset, the why, and the how of the industry's top entrepreneurs, leaders, recruiters, and salespeople. We are the Door to Door Nation. Here is your host, Lee Barber. Let's go.
All right, gang. Welcome to Door Insider. Today's special guest is Cody Veibell. Cody has been in door-to-door industry for 19 years. He had 2 years at Pinnacle, 3 years at Federal Alarms, and he was with Vivint since 2007. So 15 years with Vivint just until last August when he semi-retired. So Cody, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So this helps complete for me part of my time at Vivint with, you're one of the seven.
One of the seven. The seven went quickly to four, and and the four disappeared.
And now they're gone. So for me, in my region, I was under Casey and Bo and Jeff, and I never got an opportunity to meet you or to talk with you. So this is actually a really cool honor for me because I do love the time that I spend at Vivint, and I attribute a lot of who I am today to the men that were at Vivint in that time that really helped develop me into the person that I am. So it's an honor to have you on the show, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I'd like to start. I don't know anything about you, which is great. So a little bit about, your childhood, your teen years, kind of what got you into doors, how you grew up. What was the young Cody like, and what brought him into doors?
Okay, so kind of crazy. I woke up. I grew up pretty shy. I mean, a small town. Literally, the only neighbor within 2 miles of our home was my grandparents. So
where did you grow up?
It's called Beaver Dam. It's right in between Tremont and Logan, Utah. Okay, just in the middle of farm town. I mean, that's just farms and no houses anywhere. So, grew up with 6 sisters, 1 brother, middle of nowhere, and pretty shy. And then my dad actually started a machine shop when I was 16, 17 years old. My first job was at a grocery store, just, stocking shelves. And then he started that and said, "Hey, you want to come and do this?" And he had tried a lot of different businesses. And, I watched him try and fail and try and fail. And he was working at Lazy Boy as a machinist full time, and started this and was able to get a contract with Lazy Boy and said, "Hey, you want to do it?" So I started working with him, and he, I get a little emotional talking about it because
all right.
But he taught me a lot about leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, just, he said we got the orders on Monday and the orders had to be done Sunday night. And so there was no, this is your time clock, this is how many hours you're putting in. So I just grinded, put in the time, still had a great high school life. But it taught me a lot about leadership in terms of, set the expectations, set the timelines, set the goals, and then just let them do their thing. And I mean, there was several times I didn't work on Sunday. They didn't let me work on Sundays, but there was several times where I'd procrastinated the work because there was a party or something, I was doing. And so I'd go down at midnight on Sunday night and work till 5 a.m. when he was taking the orders out. So it was awesome. So I did that all the way up until I started knocking doors.
I love that, man. And, I was at an event recently with some really good talent from our industry, and we had a circle of guys that were sharing their stories and a lot of emotions. And I think that we grow into loving and caring what we do so much that it is emotional, and I think that's just the strongest characteristic somebody can have. So it's powerful, obviously emotionally for you, what your dad did for you and what it developed you into as a young man. And it's amazing to hear that. There's got to be something in the water in Utah, man, because there's a lot of you kind of farm boys from the, just badasses that, what resonates with me a lot is just that tremendous work ethic. I interviewed the Rawlings brothers yesterday, and Colby was like, there's not a salesman in our family but us, but we just had work ethic, man. And I love that. And that's what I hear. And that's what resonates with me. So so you're there with your dad. What gets you into doors, man?
I had all my friends were going to serve their missions for their church, and I was a member of the church, wasn't going to go serve a mission. Had decided it wasn't for me at that time in my life and didn't want to go for the wrong reasons. So I had a buddy show up from Utah State. I was living with him, and he said, "Hey, here's this ad. I think you should go look into selling pest control." So I said, "All right, well, I'll call the guy." I called this guy. He flew in from Texas, was coming in for the summer job fair. And I signed up to go sell pest control. Then this girl she was pretty cute, called me up and said, "Hey, heard you're going to sell pest control. You should sell alarms. You can make more money." So I said, "I don't know. I think I'm set." She goes, "Well, just meet with this guy, because if you meet with him, I get a gift card." So I'm like, "All right,
gift card close.
I'll meet with the guy." So I set up the interview. I show up to his house for an interview. I thought was an interview, and there's 6, 7 other guys sitting there in what I know now is knocking shirts.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks down the stairs in his townhome and throws me a stack of papers and says, "Fill this out," and then throws me a shirt and says, "Put this on." And I'm 19 years old, so I just sat at his table and signed up.
I love it.
So then I signed up, put the shirt on, and they did a couple door approaches. Then they're like, "Let's go." I'm like, "Where are we going?" Thought I was here for an interview.
Doors.
And I was just kind of shy. I said that earlier.
Yeah.
So I just got in the car and we drove down to Ogden and started knocking doors. He says, "You're going to follow this guy. He sold his first one yesterday." So the kid's name was Bryn Widward. I followed him for one door, and he's like, "It's way too hard with 2 people. So you go over there.
Go hide in the bush over there."
He had me just start knocking across the street. Had no idea what I was selling. I was just telling people how many break-ins there were and stuff. It was a mess.
The basic. So was that for Pinnacle?
Uh-huh.
And so you never did go do the bugs.
Nope, never
and
did
it's
the
crazy.
bugs.
So what year was that? It was 19 years ago. So it was 2002?
Yeah, I was 19 first summer, 2002.
It's crazy how many guys, OGs, I've interviewed. I mean, and I'm talking Doug, Luke, it's just some Ty Williams that have told me the ad recruiting. They read it in a paper or saw something, a flyer
literally
somewhere.
a physical paper, and he had it cut out and brought it home.
I wonder if that would still work. Just put an ad out and just get some badasses, man. So that gets you into Pinnacle for the first couple years. What does Cody look like for the first couple years at Pinnacle? What is it? Because what I'm trying to do is get geared into the human being that I know you became and are. But I like people to understand those first couple of years, because if we, the way that I look at the industry is it's an equal opportunity employer. And if you want to come in here and do things other men and women have done, you just fall in the in the footsteps. But so I love people to know. So what was that like for Cody the first couple of years at Pinnacle? What were those years like for you?
Yeah, so that first summer was, I thought it was going to be just crazy easy, because I started selling like right when I signed up, because they were actively selling in Utah before, they were heading out to Kansas City. And so I just set a goal. I was going to go out 3 or 4 times a week, and I started making sales. And so then my manager, he was a really good delegator. He's like, here's my minivan. You just start driving the guys out. And so I had sold 19 or 20 accounts before summer, and I was thinking, oh, it's easy in Utah and there's no crime. Imagine when I get to Kansas City, people are just going to be, I'm going to sell 3 or 4 a day. And I know a lot of listeners that have done this. They go out, they think going out in the summer, it's just going to be easy. And I had that mindset, and I got out there and I got slapped the first week, and then I got slapped the second week. And I'm sitting there Saturday, this is my second Saturday in a park, thinking it's 11 a.m. and I just got beat up for 2 hours. And I'm like, I'm going to walk diagonally through the park, so it takes me longer to get through it, because I don't want to hit another door.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the turning point. It was like, am I going to quit? I could make this working for my dad. I'm making less out here right now. Am I going to just stick this out? And that's when it was like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And from that point on, the decision was made.
Yeah.
And it was game time. I don't even remember bagling after that day. It was like, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I knew what I needed. I was writing everything down, where I was getting objected, what was going on. I was studying that when I got home.
Yeah.
The access to content and training now is unbelievable. Back then I had this little paper training manual that it was like,
there was no YouTube
overcoming objections. Flip to that page, and there's like 3 paragraphs.
Yeah. So, I love the podcast, man, because I get to just talk to people like you. And so I did an interview the other day with Chris Pierce, and he said, what winners do in hard times is they fall inward into who they truly are. Right. And so what I'm listening to you is that, when you get emotional thinking about how powerful that was with your dad, if I'm not mistaken, it sounds like, you come into the face of what a lot of people in the door-to-door community come into is that, am I going to go or am I going to quit? Am I going to tough this thing out? But when you fell back, you had what you had learned from your dad and that work ethic and that leadership. And then just to go out, hey, I'm going to go work on Sunday if I need to. And is that kind of what helped you in that moment in that park?
Yeah. And I think that what kind of was going through my head the most was my mom was like, moms don't want their kids to move away. And so she was like, are you sure that's a good idea? You think you can really make money? I don't think you can make that kind of money. Is it a scam? Those things. And so that was kind of what was going through my head was I can quit and they can be right. So I had a little bit of stubbornness.
Yeah.
Or I just said, I'm making the decision. I'm going to give my all to this thing. And if I fail, I'm going to pretend like I didn't fail. Like I'm never going to tell them I didn't make good money. I'm never going to tell them it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And so from there, it was easy.
So once it gets easy at that point, and I think that a lot of us share that stay in the industry for any level of time, knocking doors in the beginning seems like one of the hardest things. I just learn this track of thought, but any new thing seems hard until you learn it, and then it's not new anymore. Whether it's golf or doors, and then doors just kind of are easy. So then it clicks, and Cody clicks, and then we start to turn into this human. What are the next couple of years at Pinnacle in that first 2 years end up looking like for you, and how does that project you? What does that do for you going into federal?
So it was kind of weird because I ended up being the top rep in the office, 130 or so, nothing crazy, and then the next year went out, recruited like 20, 30 people, went out to Dallas, and most of them fell off, most of them quit. And so I was kind of just, all right, I just got to double down on my sales and have a huge year of sales. The owners moved out. The owners came out to Dallas and said, hey, our Tampa team is really struggling. Where you're one of the top reps in the company, can you go out there and help them? So I flew out to Tampa, was going to spend the rest of the summer out there with them. The office was doing 4 a day and I was doing 3. So it was 1 sale from everybody else and 3 from me.
Yeah.
I took a little break to go see my girlfriend, came back. I was only gone from Friday to Sunday, came back and everybody was gone. No phone call, no nothing. I'm like,
it's over.
What the heck's going on? Yeah. So I call him like, I got to get my stuff. Talked to one of the owners of Pinnacle at the time and said, hey, what's going on? And he said, well, we've moved people. You can go to this office. And I said, well, no, that's the second worst office, which is now the worst office. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
I said, I want to go to Chicago. They're the top office. And he's like, no, that's not an option. So you got to go here. And I said, well, no. We kind of got in an argument. He said, you can get over it or leave the damn company. And so this was the start of August, had 180 sales, and I said, all right, and bounced. That's when I went and worked with Federal, which my manager from my first summer had started that company. Walked away from my back end, everything, and just went all in. Yeah,
all in, man. I love the all in. And that's, just not going to be held down by anything. I want to go be with the best. No. All right, bye. I love that, man. So what is we spent 3 years at Federal, and I'm just kind of getting into your time at Vivint, because obviously you just had a massive acceleration from there over the 15 years you were there, becoming one of the VPs of Vivint. So the 3 years at Federal, you're coming into years 3, 4, and 5 in your door career. What are the lessons in that 3 years with Federal that you're taking into Vivint that kind of accelerates you into that, the next level?
I think just that first year where the owner, which was my manager for my first summer, just basically said, you're running an office. And I only went out with 5 reps. So there were 6 of us. And, trying to have a good culture and, with 5 or 6 people is kind of tough. especially when it's just a summer deal. And so I just kind of learned that summer just to have the mindset of I'm going to do it no matter what. If the results are less than I wanted, I'm going to do it, and then it'll get better and better. And so the 3 years at Federal were great and big learning time for me. But I decided for my people, I needed something big. I needed something better. I need something more. We were having good growth, but made the decision to make the transition over to Vivint. And, it was crazy growth, double, triple every year for a long time, which was awesome.
Amazing. So when you started with Vivint, it had already changed from Apex into Vivint?
No, we were Apex until 2011 and switched to Vivint in 2011. So I was there for 3 or 4 summers.
Got it. So you started Vivint as a rep?
I started as a manager, had one team, was able to, first line luckily went bankrupt and didn't pay people. And so I was able to snag Trevor Frank, who was a high school friend, and brought him over. And
Frank has a hard time selling stuff.
He's a beast, man. He's a beast.
Frank's
He's honestly,
a monster.
When it comes to the end of the summer and crunch time, nobody performs like that guy, man.
How many times did he get the cup?
I don't know. He can tell you right now, though.
So that's your one of your first recruits is Frank.
Yeah, I brought the few reps that I had at Federal. Still, I think the 5 or 6 experienced guys, and then was able to snag Trevor, and then we went crazy on recruiting and went out with a big team and did 3,500 accounts in Kentucky together. And next year split Trevor off. He did 2,000 in St. Louis. I went to Philly and was the top office in the company, and then we split those 2 teams to 4 teams, and then we went to 8. And then just kind of
just doing it. So help me put some stuff together. So Bo, Casey, Jeff, we're always on the West Coast for me. That's what I was, and I didn't come into Viv until 2017. So this is just literally helping me fill in a gap. So you're growing throughout that time, and I know Bo recruited Casey and Jeff, and those guys did a similar thing. And as I've grown in the industry, I've seen some pretty amazing things, just as somebody that's in the industry myself, seeing some of the massive growth that some of you guys have with getting into the 10s and 20, 30,000 accounts and then managing so many people. The amount of recruiting that's necessary it's phenomenal. And I see that in my org now. It's just, you see amazing human beings just doing really amazing things that just almost seem superhuman. So as you kind of grew into that, we had those set of guys on one end of it, and you're growing into a VP position. What do those years look like for your growth in Vivint, and what were some of the things that you learned and accelerated you into that top place?
I mean, it was just putting in the time. It was putting in the time, and I had learned a lot from Jared Young was my divisional or VP or whatever you call it when I came over from Federal, and I knew him because he was my traveling trainer my first summer. So he'd come out to the office, he'd sleep on the couch, and just go knock doors with you, show you a cell, and then he'd walk 3 miles to the next guy and show them a cell. Crazy how much it's changed, but I learned a lot from him on just leadership and just trusting in people. I was very, and I still am, I still struggle with it, where I'm like OCD and I want everything to be perfect. And his leadership style is like, no, it's okay. It's okay to let your people fail, because that's how they learn. Where I was more like kind of coddling them a little bit in the Federal days. And with him, it was, no, just throw them out there. They'll figure it out. And so, create a manager and let them go figure it out. And then Casey Bach came over that same year that I did, and I thought he was going to fail because he was a satellite guy, and satellite guys didn't know how to sell alarms. And he was in the office every time I was there, and he was interviewing people that had done it a long time and had been successful. So I learned, you're never too good to just learn from others. Yeah. And so just, there was, a lot of stuff that I'd learned, just constantly learning and putting in the time that was able to just double the growth every year. It's
always one thing, I see in my org, guys doing it now. Seth does it, some of these guys, but it's almost amazing even for me to watch. So how many guys did you have in your org when you were the last couple years in Vivint? How many accounts were you guys putting in?
Oh man. Back before we were part of the 7, the 7 was in charge of the whole company, which was kind of weird, but before that, I believe it was like 40,000 accounts between me and Jared. We were managing together.
It's a substantial amount of alarm counts.
Yeah. So a lot of people.
Yeah. Where this is the part that still evades me. Where were you guys? How are you recruiting this many human beings? Like what are the circumstances that are putting that many people at your, is it just the raw attraction of the machine, the snowball effect, or is it personal connections, or just everything? Like, and it's a true question, because I always wonder, like, how does it get so big?
Back then it was all just warm connections and just people you knew, and leadership is influence, and we developed leaders that just were influential, and people saw how well they were doing. They liked the culture and they just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And then even if they were nervous, they'd just say, that's fine. Just come out and try it.
See what happens.
Go try it. And then, they're motivated, like, okay, they're just trying it out. I got to make sure they have a good experience.
Yeah. And that's the number. And I think it was Kelly or Colby that just said that on their podcast, was leadership is influence. And we were talking about, and I said that John C. Maxwell said a leader with no one following him is just a man taking a walk, but it really does come down to influence. And I think, from where I stand, I see, just some really powerful cultures. And it was like that for me when I started at Vivid in 2017. There's just so much attraction and so many, and I attribute a lot of my time. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to meet you then, but I do now. But meeting Casey, Casey's always been an inspiration to me, because, in my early childhood, and I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, I didn't have the opportunities that everybody else had. And so I had to learn the behaviors, who I am now. I attribute who I am now to DOOR2DOOR, to our industry, to who you have to become as a leader, as a man, as a follower, as a teacher, as a giver, as somebody who serves, literally to our industry. So, it really does. I do attribute it. You're right. It's the attraction of great human beings just doing really powerful stuff. So that's awesome, man. So in your time in Vivint, what I'm interested in, when you started with Vivint, and we'll just talk about that because I think you had some of your most accelerated growth from 2017 to last August. What was your vision from when you started there and towards the end of your career? How did your vision change for yourself, for your people?
You just, as a leader, you genuinely start to care about people. I think everybody has different leadership styles. You look at, the three people you just mentioned, Casey, Jeff, and Bo, completely different leadership styles, but incredibly influential people.
Yeah.
And I think that it comes down to, one of the major characteristics that you have to have as a leader is love for your people. And you get to know them, you get to know their families. And so, you want them to have the experiences and the things that you've been blessed with in the industry. And so that's what you get to a point where the money's it's just money. The first little while, it's a good motivator, but eventually it has to be something more than that. And so it's cool to just see them, your people grow into something, and powerful leaders, and not only see them make money, but see them develop other people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I've been going through a thing. I interviewed Ty Williams. I'm sure you know Ty. And Ty, I always picture Ty as like he's in the back room, like doing, like study and stuff, right?
He's just such a creative leader, and just has a mind that's
he's like, well, I'm working on a project right now. And I'm like, Ty's got these projects, man. He's like, how close is too close? With a rep, with a team member. And, this is a very interpersonal business. And I've learned, from people, Seth, Casey, Bo, just guys that I've been in the industry with, Kenny, that I've followed and loved for a really long time, that they're people who just gave to me unconditionally. Like, this is our connection. This is my knowledge. This is my heart. This is how I treat my family. This is how I live my life. So there is really no close is too close. And that's what I've fallen in love with the job, is that we get to give to other people. So that's super amazing, man. So your vision, as you got later in your years, what was it? What helped you continue to grow into such a great leader in the industry?
I think working with Todd and just his vision of what he wanted it to become just helped you, get that extra bounce. Cause there were tough years. I mean, when you're dealing with public money and there's a lot more challenges, in my opinion, a 10-minute decision takes 10 months. And that's hard as a senior leader because we were used to the days where it was like, oh, this guy needs this. Okay, done. And so, learning that side of it was really impactful for me because it's a completely different business when it gets that. And so I think for me, it just became more of just learning and growing as a business leader, not just in the door-to-door world, because the door-to-door part was a big part and built that business. But, you start bringing these other people in that are a lot smarter than us. And I'm not saying all the decisions were right decisions, but you just were able to learn so much more and push yourselves to stuff that you didn't think you could do. One of the big changes, nobody thought we could go do in consumer financing. How are your sales reps going to sell a loan on the doors?
I remember when it happened.
I mean, it's wild. It's wild. And we went and did it and we executed at such a high level. And, it's just crazy how you set your mind to something that no one thinks you can do and you go and execute on it. It's fun.
Yeah. So, and I love that. I was actually there with Vivint when the consumer financing came out. I thought it was I thought it was amazing. I know there was a lot of stuff on the back end. One of the things that I usually ask later is about mentors for my guests, but you just hit on it there. So, what was it like working with Todd at that level? From I've met Todd. I tried to get him on the podcast maybe one day. But he just has an amazing reputation as a hard worker. And I've heard his story. He comes from humble beginnings. We rented his house for a long time, drove a reclaimed car for a long time, just poured all his money into Vivint. And what anybody ever, I love Vivint for what they did for me in my years. But he's got an amazing reputation as an incredibly hard worker. So what was it like? So obviously he's an inspiration for you. But how was that relationship with you and Todd, and what did you learn from that relationship over time?
So I never got real close with him, but he's one of those guys where when you're in the room with him, you can just tell that he's passionate about what he wants, and no one ever second guessed him. No one ever questioned anything because when he said something and we went and did it, it always worked. So it was just one of those guys that just had the knowledge and the thought of something and it worked. And so the trust level was really, really high. I mean, with everybody really trusted his guidance and his thoughts and went and executed on it. A lot of the mentors that I've kind of had over the years are actually people that technically reported to me. That's where I think I kind of learned the most because, seeing what they're going through, what they're struggling with in their family life, and how they deal with it, is probably even more impactful than having mentors, that are in a lot better spot than me, because you look at them and, I don't know, it just keeps you a little more grounded and a little more humbled.
Yeah, no, and
that's one of the things I kind of struggle with. I have that personality that's like, you can get to the point where you can get a little prideful, and the stubbornness comes out, and so
100%. Well, I love that, man. It's and I go, I'm a very hard on my sleeve person. I'm emotionally driven. And I love when Ty said, how close is too close? Because I really believe that when people say it's just business, this business is a little more than that. And I agree with you. A lot of the struggles that I've seen my people go through, that I've had to go through, it's a learning lesson in both ways. So that's a big nugget, man. So, one of the things, and this might be a loaded question, but what are you best at and why? And I guess that we could apply that to, over the years, you've learned an immense amount of things in 19 years in the door-to-door industry, from the corporate level and financing, starting with doors, knocking with guys. What are some of the key things that you've become best at?
I would say that just genuinely caring about people is probably one of my biggest strengths. I don't know if it's from growing up with 6 sisters or what, but just, being aware of what's going on in people's lives. I think it has really helped me in my career. And then also just executing on things super fast. You know, if I tell somebody I'm going to do it, I do it and I execute on it as fast as possible.
Mm.
Those, because it builds trust, you know.
Yeah.
Trust is one of the most important things. Trust, accountability, and love. If you have those three things, it doesn't matter how you lead, people will follow you.
I love that. So, yeah, that's money. I don't mean to keep falling back to the podcast yesterday, but with the Rawlings brothers, one of the things that Colby said was, a lot of leadership is just the fundamentals. Are you there at every meeting? Can your people count on you? Are you doing what you said you were going to do? Are you honest? Do you have integrity? Do you show up? You say you're going to go knock. Do you go knock? Just those little things for people that say, hey, I care about you. I love you. I'm invested in you. I'm invested in your growth. So that's amazing, man. If you could pick a couple things to be good at, that's pretty dang good right there.
Yeah, I'm not going to sling out any good quotes very often, but
those are pretty
I'll do
good.
what I say I'm going to do.
I like that. So in 19 years, I'm sure you've just been, our industry success is loaded with adversity, right? Just any level of success, our industry or any industry, to be successful in anything, exercise, diet, this career, to be a doctor, the adversity in school. What are some of the main adversities you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome
them? I think that I it's always changed. There's always adversity. That's the thing. You're never gonna get rid of the adversity. It doesn't matter how successful you become, how big your organization. You're always gonna have the ups and downs of business.
Yeah.
For an example, Vivint 2009 was a really scary year. The economy had crashed. Vivint wasn't able to go raise money at that time. We were thinking about having to shut down half of the sales force. And so there's always adversity. And so I like to just make sure people understand that's never going to go away. You're never going to have hard times. You're never going to not have hard times. It's always going to be, you just have to be ready for it and be excited to take it and learn from it and grow. And so it changes. It changes, with time. But one of the things that has been really hard since I stepped down from my position at Vivint is just, am I going to just waste my life away, and am I going to lose influence? Am I going to just, or do I want to go do something? I don't need the money, but do I want to, better myself, better my people, and push myself, or do I just kind of want to take a paycheck and chill? So
Yeah.
that's been one of the biggest challenges of the last year for me.
Well, I think, and I love hearing you. So, I think a lot of us, we're builders. We want to build, we want to create, and a lot of my passion comes from, what's next. What do I get to? Who do I get to help? Who can I recruit? What can I build? What can I create? What's next? And so I identify with that a lot. When you gain such a massive amount of knowledge, you're a very valuable human being, right? And they say money follows value, but more importantly, the amount of lives that you can help, just by being who you are and teaching other men to fish in any variation of what we do. And I can understand how that would be a challenge, right? Because you're a builder. I mean, guys like us, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, if I could, listen, if I hit the lottery and if I had $50 million, I feel like I'd just be obsessed with like a whole new job. I'd be investing everywhere. Like I can't just sit on the couch or go to a beach. So I know exactly what I can understand.
Yeah. Success is progression. And I think generally, especially, really, really talented, highly successful people, they're just, we're wired to want more, not for the monetary value of things, but just, we want more, we want to get better, we want to learn, we want to push ourselves. And the money's kind of a byproduct of that, just that feeling of confidence that you get when you just go bust your butt.
Yeah. It's just defining success by the sowing, not the reaping. So I guess maybe a better question would have been, how do you deal with that adversity? Whether it's what you're going through now, what are the processes that you've built up And I have a few things that I do, but I'm interested because adversity is adverse. Some of it's tougher, some of it's more emotional, some of it's more mental. But how do you, what defenses have you built up, or what do you do to deal with those adversities?
And talking with my wife and kids over the last little bit, and it's like, yeah, they've liked having me home, and I've kind of turned a little bit into a taxi driver for my wife, but it's they realize, yeah, it's chill, it's not stressful, but they're also like, they like that when I come home and it's like, I got this light in my eye. It's like, I went and tore it up today. I went and got something done.
Yeah.
And so that's you have to constantly push yourself and constantly, because you can get into that just a complacent stage. So some of the things I do, I make sure that I'm up early. I mean, I don't ever sleep in, make sure I get to bed at a decent time. I try to spend at least a couple hours on the phone with people I haven't connected with for a long time, and just, seeing what they're up to. And there's a lot that you can gain from those, those conversations, whether it's somebody from college, somebody from high school, just catch up, see how their family's doing, see what their career's like. And just kind of networking is what I've spent most of the last 8-9 months doing.
Well, it's probably what you've spent most of the last quite a few years of your life doing. I mean, when you're a professional,
it's different though when you're when you know that there's never, they're never going to work with you.
Yeah,
maybe they will. Maybe I'll go work with them. I don't know, but just connecting with people and making sure I'm having that really solid human connection, because when you're doing this job, you have that every single day, and when you have 8 months of not, it's you have to really, you got to focus on it, because I need that.
Yeah, it becomes who we are. Life. Yeah, I can vibe with that, man. So one of the things, I go through different levels of personal development. I'm a big believer in, we heard of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Always the law of the lid, right? I don't want my people to grow into me, so I'm constantly taking in content, and I go through different stages and evolutions of my own personal development. So one of the things I always like to ask my guests is, where are you at with your personal development? Like, what are you focused on in your life right now? Because we're always for guys like us generally, we're trying to be better than the guy we were yesterday. So what are the things that you've identified that you need to be better at, and what part of that creative process are you in?
It's I'll be honest, it's hard. And I think that if anybody says that it's really easy to always be focused on their person, I think they're lying. I think it takes extreme focus, and you have to be very deliberate on, how you're going to do it. And I have to, I mean, just being real, I have to say, hey, I'm going to listen to this podcast tomorrow before the gym, or hey, I'm going to, because it's really easy to get sucked into your phone and start, just wasting your day. And so, the thing that helps me the most is just really planning out my week, really planning out my day, and making sure that I'm efficient with my time. Because you can look back. There's days where I look back and I'm like, what the hell did I get done today? I mean, it's like nothing. And then there's days where you're really busy and you look back, like, how did I get that accomplished in one day?
Yeah.
And those are the days that I'm the happiest.
Yeah, I love those days myself. And I love that. You just hear, success leaves breadcrumbs, man. I'm a big believer in, I was in a meeting years ago, and they were describing somebody who doesn't plan as just a boat out in the ocean with no rudder, and it's the same thing. I can get lost and stuff too if I'm not focused in on what I'm doing or trying to develop or knowing what I'm going to do. I can be a boat without a rudder just as easily. So one of the things I'm interested to know is who have become your most influential mentors. I guess not just in the door-to-door community, but just in your life. Like, and what roles did they play in helping you become who you were?
So, obviously my parents, my mom, big personality, has owned a dance studio since she was like 18. So she's been an entrepreneur, just, more of the personality. My dad's super reserved, really quiet. But both of them, I mean, I kind of got the best of both worlds there. So, and then, I don't know if you know Jason Brown at all.
I don't.
but he's one of those leaders. I mean, he's built the biggest organizations, in my opinion, in the sales world. I mean, you look at like Jordan Binning, the Williams brothers are from him. They're just big, giant organizations, and he's a very hands-off leader, and he just gives you all the confidence in the world. So watching him lead, it's like, no, you can do that. Like, what are you talking about? Why can't you go do, this many accounts? And, you just watch people that have been under his leadership, and he's quiet. I mean, not a lot of people know much about him, but he's just built giant organizations, and it's just through complete it gives them complete autonomy and just believes in them like no other. And he makes them believe, and they just grow massively.
They just go out.
And then you got, Jared Young. He was, from the first day I started knocking doors in Kansas City, he was out there traveling, training, and, just watching him get dropped off, no rental car, no hotel, no nothing. And he just knocks doors and then walks to the next person. And, from 1 to dark all day. And then, 2 days later, he flies somewhere else, and he's sleeping on couches all summer long. And I mean, that was the life back then. And so, those things are really influential to me. And, sometimes people look at the higher ups in the industry and they think that it was just given to them. And I mean, I've seen what these guys have done, and it's been crazy. It was definitely not an easy path.
No, none of it. It's interesting, man, because, I relate it a lot to sports, and I've said this before, but so, you have guys that'll sit on the stands, and it's really easy to understand what the rules are in football. I understand what all the players do, and I understand how the ball moves, and I understand what the ref does, and I understand what the QB does, and I understand how many players are on the field, and I can explain it. But if I got to go get on the football field and move that ball down the court, it's a whole other matter. When you see guys and they, talk about, listen, putting 50 installs a month together is difficult. Putting 100, putting 1,000, try and put 2,000, try and put 40,000 installs together. It's a tremendous feat, and I watch in my work, I watch guys doing stuff, and I'm just like, it's mind boggling, so I don't underestimate. And I guess what it is a lot of guys want a red pill, and I've knocked behind and beside some of the industry greats. And I've heard guys, you talk to a guy about Bo, and you're like, how is Bo? And they're like, Bo's a freaking assassin, man. That dude's a axe murderer on doors. But from dawn to dusk, Seth, I knocked with Seth, dawn to dusk. He knocked with a broken foot. I'm not, I barely want to knock with a surgery shoulder, man. These dudes are, but the point is that there's no red pill, that it's just an immense amount of the compound effect of really, really hard, dedicated, solid work that's committed. And these processes of, dealing with problems and solutions and who we become over time. So a lot of credit to that, man. And what I hear a lot from you is just, it's a lot more appreciation almost downward, like for, the knocker or the guy standing beside you or the guy going through it. Like, Todd's a great, obviously, leader and business influencer, but you're getting more from the guys that you're helping, what they're struggling through on the doors. Like, I hear a lot of that in you, man. And that's really powerful, because all it is, and I just see that in you and a lot of what you've talked about. And it's just humility. It's humility for the job. And it's a real connection to human beings and what we do, and as recruiters at any level, whether you're recruiting one person or 500 people, you have that human being's life in your hands. And when they're quitting a job or coming to you, they have, children and a wife and somebody at home and bills and they're putting their life in our hands. So to have that, obviously that's what made you one of the industry greats, man. You're a GOAT, but it's from what I'm vibing on, it's just that really solid human connection. So it's really cool to get to know you, man, in that. So, you've had an amazing amount of time with reps. What are some of the diversities that you see? And I want to do 2 spans here, and then we won't take up too much more time. But what's your advice for the guy that's in the first couple years? That'll be the first question. And then what's your advice for the guy in the latter years? So the guy in the 1 to 3 or 1 to 5 range, and then the guy in the 5 to 10 to 15 range, because I think there's different things that each of us, I've gone through different things in my 5 years in the industry, but what do you see in guys like that, and what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I think the early years, I'd just say you're closer than you think you are.
Mm.
And it's really, really easy when you're going through the tough times to look at everybody else and be like, oh, well, they've got it so easy. I wish I was where they're at. But they were where you were at. It wasn't very long ago they were struggling just like you are. And so just keep your head up and stay the course. You're close. Focus on the small victories, the little things, and it'll come together. It'll come together for you. And then the ones in the latter years, it's easy to kind of get into just a rhythm of complacency.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be complacent, be deliberate in your thoughts and your vision, and don't change it because you've had a couple tougher years and you're making good enough money. Force yourself and figure out a game plan, and talk to whoever you have to just figure out how you can get out of that. Just, I'm okay with where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're just dying.
Yeah.
You're dying. And, the financial part is a byproduct, but you're dying mentally. You're built to grow and push yourself and develop yourself and get better. So figure that out, whatever you have to do. And it's different for everybody, but
I love that, man. I just relate to so much of what you're saying. So it was months ago, I don't know. And I was listening to Casey I just listened to random stuff, and it just popped up. And, oh, there's Casey. What's he? And it was a really quick. And he said, don't sit at the table of success for too long. And I don't even remember what the heck he said for the rest of the podcast, but it rung my bell, man. And I was, I've been in for 5 years, and I had some good success. I've been successful for what I'm doing. And, but what I had realized in a certain period of my life at that time was I was the smartest guy in the room. And I wasn't flatlined, because anybody looking at me from my perspective, or just coming in, is like, oh, he's doing great. But I'm like, I'm not doing great. Like I'm doing okay, but this isn't who I am. So I really identify with because I had that moment myself, and it really, by owning that moment, it propelled me out of my comfort zone into, and I don't want to call it fear, but it is. Anything unknown is scary as heck, because you don't know, and you wish you could just have a crystal ball and be like, well, if I do this, what happens in 5 years? But you don't. You have to trust your instincts. And so I agree with that, because I'm in my, coming into my 6th year. I'll be moving into it. And I had gotten pretty comfortable. I had a really comfortable year and a half, 2 years, and I was in that moment. And I was like, I got to get out of this. I have to change it. I have to grow. I have to increase like who I am as a human being. And you're right. The money it's just there, but I'm a builder. I need connection. I need education. I need and that's why I love the podcast, man, because I get to talk to guys like you. But I need that everywhere in my life to become the person that I want to be, because I don't just want, money is I'm not chasing a bank account. I'm chasing a person to be. And it's I just want to be more wise. So I really, really, really identify with what you just said on that. So that was awesome, man. I don't have any more questions, Cody. I do want, I want to know how you got to Las Vegas. Tell everybody how you got here.
I all my life I've wanted to be a pilot, get my pilot's license, and start flying. Just, I thought it'd be cool. My brother-in-law is a pilot, and he just flies for fun on his own, has a little tailwheel plane, and does the spins and stuff. I'm not interested in that. I'm kind of scared of heights, but so I finally, my financial guy's like, hey, I'm a pilot. You just go get your license, do it. And so a year ago I said, all right, I'm going to do it. Signed up and went and knocked it out. And about 20 hours in, said, I'm going to buy my own plane, and bought my own plane and finished my training in it, and visited all the summer offices last summer with Vivint, with my instructor in my plane with me, and flying all over, got tons of real world experience. And, got my instrument rating, my private pilot license in August, my instrument rating in December. And
That's amazing.
Now I just fly wherever I need to be whenever.
That's
it's
so
awesome.
Cool. That's so cool. So how many hours did you have to train to get the actual pilot's license?
I did a lot more hours than most. You only have to have 40 as long as you meet all the requirements and pass the test. But I was like in the hundreds because I was doing it as like instead of flying Delta last year wearing masks, I just, hopped in my plane and flew all over. So got a lot of experience, but I was like 120 hours. Now I'm at like 330.
That's amazing, man. And I saw your plane. You just got a new plane, which is just an amazing accomplishment. I love to talk about. So, and the cool thing about talking about your plane is it's the tip of the iceberg to a massive career, a massive amount of success. And I've said this on the podcast. I just recently had a couple reps that bought a house, and they're on Facebook. It's a house. But what people that know you for time see is like, what does it take to get to that level of success? And it's just a tremendous amount of hard work. And then not just to have a plane, but actually to be the pilot, just as a testament to who you are as a person, and just a huge, huge career over a 19-year span in doors.
So I just had a question for you before we wrap up, Cody. I would say of the strengths that I know of yours, the one that is the best is relationships. And you kind of talked about that a little bit, is you've built really strong relationships with people, and I've noticed that. I've experienced it, and I respect the hell out of it. What I'm interested to know is, you mentioned that you care a lot about people, you talk to them, and my question is, what is it that you've done that has created such a tight-knit culture amongst your whole organization? There's very few people in the industry that have played, not even at the level you played at, but even half that, a fraction of that level, that have done it all from warm network recruiting. I can name two in my head right now as I think about it, and you're one of them. And both of those people have something in common, which is that their group is extremely tight knit. They're very, very loyal. They're very close. There's high trust. There's love. There's respect. Everything that you want in that. And so, what have you done that's created that culture at maybe the best level out of anyone in the whole door-to-door industry?
I think it's just genuinely caring about people. There's a lot of leaders that care about the money more than the relationship, and people see that. So, I've told myself early on, I don't care about the money. The money's just going to work itself out. I care about the people. And so if that means I'm not working with somebody, that doesn't change the way that I treat them. It doesn't change what I know about their family. It doesn't change at all. And if it works out that we work again together, great. If it doesn't, great. It doesn't matter. And if people feel that way, then it creates that, it creates a really, really strong, deep rooted relationship and friendship that, you want to work with people like that.
Yeah. So let me take it another level. So it's one thing to do that, right? But you've done that at a level where you teach others to do that, or else your organization wouldn't have scaled the way that it scaled, right? And so what have you done, and how do you, I don't want to say enforce, but how do you encourage that same type of culture and respect amongst the leaders, if that makes sense at all? I know I'm a little vague.
One of the things that's really important to me is autonomy. So I talk about that earlier, so I don't want to contradict myself at all.
Right.
But
and that's what makes this a hard question for me.
I think that you kind of have to, or when people are in early stages of leadership development, they need you to kind of oversee them and micromanage them and tell them, hey, did you see it's this person's birthday? Hey, have you checked in to see how their baby's doing? And just kind of force them to start thinking the way that you've thought for so many years. And then eventually they catch on and see the value in it. But a lot of times, as you're developing leaders, they just don't think about it. They've got so much going on. And so sometimes you have to be the person that's saying, hey, you need to call this person. They haven't sold for 4 days, and you're paying attention to the stats that are happening. Hey, did you notice that this happened to this person's mom? Make sure you go, so there was a lot of that, early on with with different people, and then they start figuring it out and start doing it on their own.
So for our listeners, we had Seth Grinney in here in the background. He's the Wizard of Oz behind
I had
the
to
curtain.
jump in.
He had to jump in.
Know.
So you're here. You have a completely different level of questions. I don't want to end. Do you have any other really badass questions?
Thank you. I've had a few pop up as we talked. I've been really interested to know. I mean, and this was more. You talked about Jason's style of leadership, but I think that you and I have pretty similar styles of leadership, and so I actually just want you to talk about kind of what we just did a little bit more, the struggle of, and this is in my experience, maybe the hardest thing I have to deal with, or one of them, is the balance between autonomy and then helping people learn, right? So I've noticed that I swing back and forth, and there will be 2 months where I'm like, figure it out, you've got this, dude, you don't need me, and I err on that side, and then something will go wrong and we have an issue. And so for 2 months, I'm over everyone's shoulder and I'm calling them every day and I'm texting, what time are these guys on doors? What have you done to balance out the style of leadership where you're empowering people to grow, but you also have this challenge of they need you, right?
Yeah. So, it kind of goes back to the trust and accountability. So you're trusting in them, but you also, when trust is a little bit high, then you gotta be holding them a little bit more accountable. And so, you as a leader are going to make mistakes, and your leaders are going to make mistakes. And when they do, you don't love them any less, but you oversee it a little bit more. Same thing if your kid has a bad report card. If they have a bad report card, then you're doing things that you normally wouldn't do, whether that's, hey, after school, you're with me at my office, sitting there working on this until you get your grades up. And then when they get their grades up, then you kind of let them be. You let them have their space and they have more autonomy, and you trust that they're going to do it. But as soon as it's bad, then they're back in your office, and you're kind of overseeing them. And so I think that that's important, that people understand, if I'm not doing the right thing, and it's in leadership, it's in parenting, if I'm not doing the right thing, then Seth's going to get after me, or Lee's going to get after me, and they're going to be on me. So I'm going to just do the right thing. And then, as time goes on, those leaders, you're not having to do that anymore, but then you have new ones come in and you're having to do that.
Sure.
But I think that's just leadership, parenting, leadership in your job, whatever. It's when there's mistakes, you put a plan of attack in place to fix it. And there's a quick course correction.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So you kind of, it's performance based. It's, you need my help, so I'm going to lean on you a little bit more. You don't need me, and I'm going to let you figure it out. And, come to me when you need help. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly.
Okay. I just had one more that I'm really interested to hear. I really liked and hadn't heard the story of when you left Pinnacle, because I 100% would have done the exact same thing. Just, it's the principle, it's the right thing to do. I'm out. And I actually like that you walked from your back end too. I think that's badass. My question is, you did that where you went through a couple littler places, and you get to, it's APX when you go there, and you strapped in and you built it and you put it on your back, and there was, I assume, no questioning it. But my question is, was there ever a time where, at Apex, at Vivint, at any of those days where you're just like, this shit's falling apart, I don't know what to do, I'm at my wit's end, and you're almost losing it? Did that happen a lot? Did it ever happen? Can you talk about those moments when it's like really, really hard? Because at every level of this game, we all face those moments.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of moments like that. I've kind of trained myself, I think it's maybe the door knocking in me that I've kind of trained myself to not remember them.
Yeah.
Kind of like I would get in the car after door knocking and I think I sold everybody.
Yeah.
Because I didn't remember any of that. But yeah, there were definitely challenges, but I just choose not to think about them. But it goes back to, it's really, really important. And I have to do this too, because you're always looking at other people that have it so much better,
mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of people are looking at me like, oh man, he just got it made. You know, he's got great family. He's just, you know, doing great financially. Everything's
You
going.
do, right?
I mean, I'm pretty blessed, but I still have those same days that they're having where they're looking at other people and saying, hey, have I really done enough? But it's just important to remember that no matter who you're looking at, they're still having their struggles. They're still having whatever you're going through. They probably went through it last week.
Yeah.
And so, I couldn't pinpoint exactly, the challenges. I know the hardest thing for me, ever is dealing with, the inability to make decisions and move on things fast. And so I would say the biggest challenges for me, you know, the last year and a half at Vivint was, not having the ability to make decisions.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And that's hard. And so I've committed to myself, as a leader in the future that I won't bottleneck people. I'm not going to be the bottleneck. You know, whether they make the right decision or wrong decision, I'm going to empower people to make the decision. And if they make the wrong decision, we'll go and learn from it together. But I'm not going to be the bottleneck.
That's awesome. Would you say a lot of your experiences come from watching others make the wrong decision in a similar, maybe not someone that works with you, but, you know, and I'm not going to say Vivint made the wrong decision or did anything wrong, but I'm just saying, as you've experienced a slowdown, probably due to the company being publicly traded, that's hard for people like you that like to move quickly. Have you learned a lot of other lessons that same way? By, man, this sucks, I'm never going to do that to anyone else.
The major lesson that I've learned is it's really, really important how you have your leadership structure set up, and making sure that you're not bypassing any of the leaders. That's pretty vague, but it's really, really important that you have the reporting the right way, and the chain of command set up, which sounds kind of dumb, but you know, people need to be in positions to make decisions.
Mm-hmm. Why is that so important? Would you say the chain of command? What is it about that you know you would emphasize?
If people are in a position, and it's just a title and they're getting paid, but they can't make decisions, you force them into complacency.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happened. I feel like that started to happen quite a bit with us.
It's tough to be ready to run and everyone around you isn't ready to run. I know that feeling. It's hard. That's pretty much all I've got, Cody. I just wanted to jump in and hear a couple of those things. So I just want to say I really appreciate you making the trip down. This has been really fun to listen to and really cool. You're an amazing human being. So I'll let Lee take us out, but thanks for talking to me.
Appreciate it, man.
So I love that because that's just VP level questioning, you know, like my mind, I'm operating from a different paradigm, you know, and the business IQ that you guys both have from being in your positions, just a completely different set of questions. So super dope to have that. So thanks for jumping in on that. It was amazing and great answers. I have a quick takeaway from that. So I've learned a lot from Seth, just over the last couple of years in that the very fact of what you guys were just talking about, of who you are, right? That's who you said you are, is a guy, no matter what, where we work, what we do, we're still going to be friends. I'm still going to care about you. I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to want this success. And I've had trouble with that in my early career. You know, somebody leaves and I'm very connected to them and it's a pain point, you know, and I'm like, it hurts. And I don't know if I can be your friend anymore. And I've really tried to learn and grow and change that aspect of myself. And I just went through that with a close friend of mine. And he came over to my house today. So it was pretty cool for me. And I don't want to get emotional, but I learned that from Seth, to be a better man and just to care about people for who they are and what they do. So I wanted to touch on that. I love this podcast, man. I love it. You know, that we actually get to be real on here and this was a super dope conversation to have both you guys in here and to hear who you are as a human being. It's powerful. And, you know, just to be around the people that I get to be around. So I'm blessed to have you here, Cody. Thank you for flying down in your plane. Badass. The baddest ass way anybody's ever got to the podcast was flying down in their own plane.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I appreciate you, Lee.
Man, I want to go sometime.
Anytime. I'm all about it all the time.
All right, thanks for coming down, Cody. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks,
right.
Lee.